Dean Ambrose sends a warning message to Paul Heyman after Vision betrays Seth Rollins. Are you absolutely kidding me right now? Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley, the man who left WWE in 2019 swearing he'd never return, the guy who built an entire AEW career on being the anti-WWE rebel, the wrestler who spent years talking about how much he hated WWE's creative restrictions, just cut the most intense promo in AEW Dynamite history, sending a direct warning to Paul Heyman and the Vision after they brutally attacked Seth Rollins, essentially declaring that the original Shield brotherhood still matters more than any corporate loyalty or contractual obligations, and that if Heyman thinks he can destroy Seth without consequences, he's about to discover why you should never mess with someone who is a psychopath with nothing to lose watching from another company. But here's what's going to make you absolutely furious: this wasn't a work shoot that WWE and AEW coordinated for publicity. This was Moxley going completely off script during an AEW show and cutting a promo that is both companies' legal teams in emergency meetings because Mox directly referenced WWE intellectual property, named specific WWE wrestlers, and essentially threatened to show up at a WWE event without permission, creating a potential legal nightmare that could either result in the biggest wrestling crossover since the Monday Night Wars or a massive lawsuit. I'm about to break down every single word of Moxley's warning to Paul Heyman that has the entire wrestling world speculating about a potential return, reveal why Tony Khan was reportedly blindsided by Mox going off script and is now in damage control mode trying to figure out if this helps or hurts AEW's relationship with WWE, expose the contract details that make Moxley's threat legally complicated because his AEW deal has exclusivity clauses that would prevent him from appearing in WWE without Tony Khan's approval, and explain why this situation is bigger than just Mox potentially helping Seth. It's about whether the forbidden door can truly open for top stars or if company politics will always prevent dream matches and meaningful crossovers. And before you say this is just Mox working everyone with a promo, wait until you hear what happened after Dynamite went off the air when Mox allegedly told AEW officials, "I meant every word, and if they touch Seth again, I'm going to WWE whether Tony likes it or not." Let's start with the context because understanding what prompted Moxley's promo makes it even more powerful and concerning. The Vision, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, before his removal, Brock Lesnar, and Paul Heyman, has been systematically destroying Seth Rollins on WWE programming for weeks. Multiple attacks, brutal beatdowns, psychological warfare. Seth has been portrayed as an outnumbered warrior fighting impossible odds with no backup and no allies besides his tentative partnership with Roman Reigns. The latest attack happened on Monday Night Raw and was particularly vicious. The Vision ambushed Seth backstage, hitting him with chair shots, power moves, and leaving him bloodied in what WWE sold as potentially career-threatening injuries. The visual of Seth being stretchered out while Paul Heyman stood over him declaring the Shield is dead and Seth Rollins is the final proof was designed to be a definitive statement that the Vision had completely broken one of WWE's top stars. That attack aired on Monday. By Wednesday's AEW Dynamite, wrestling fans were discussing how Seth needed help but had nowhere to turn. Roman's loyalty is questionable. The Usos have their own problems. Cody Rhodes is focused on his championship reign. Seth appeared to be genuinely alone against an unstoppable faction. Question for the comments: when you saw the Vision destroy Seth on Raw, did you immediately think of Moxley, or did that connection not occur to you until his promo? Be honest. Then came Wednesday's Dynamite. The show was proceeding normally with typical AEW storylines and matches. Moxley was scheduled for a backstage interview segment about his upcoming match, standard stuff that wouldn't normally make headlines. But when Moxley grabbed the microphone, something was different. His energy was off. His eyes had the dangerous look that longtime fans recognize as Mox is about to do something unpredictable. The interviewer started with a standard question about Mox's next opponent. Mox completely ignored the question and instead said, "You want to talk about my match next week? That's cute. But there's something more important we need to discuss. Something that happened on Monday night that I can't stop thinking about." The production team was reportedly scrambling at this point because Mox referencing WWE programming during an AEW show was not in the script. You could see the interviewer's face showing confusion because they clearly didn't know where Mox was going with this. Mox continued, "I watched Monday Night Raw. Yeah, I said it, I watched WWE. And I saw the Vision, Braun Breaker, Brock Lesnar, and that manipulative piece of garbage Paul Heyman absolutely destroy Seth Rollins. They jumped him. They beat him bloody. They left him broken. And you know what Paul Heyman said while standing over Seth's body? He said, 'The Shield is dead.'" The crowd started buzzing because they were connecting the dots. Moxley, Dean Ambrose, was the third member of the Shield. Moxley and Seth Rollins were brothers in the most successful faction in modern WWE history. And now Mox was publicly acknowledging that connection on AEW television. "Paul," Mox said, looking directly into the camera, "let me tell you something about the Shield. You can destroy the vests. You can erase the name from WWE programming. You can pretend it never existed. But what you can't do is erase the bond between three men who went through hell together. Seth Rollins is my brother. Not in some fake wrestling storyline way. but in a real, legitimate, I'd take a bullet for that man way. Drop your comment now. Did Moxley's acknowledgement of Seth as his real brother make you emotional, or did it feel like just a promo? Tell me your reaction. The crowd was going absolutely insane at this point. AEW fans were chanting holy shit because they were witnessing something unprecedented, and AEW star openly discussing WWE storylines and personal connections to WWE wrestlers while cutting what appeared to be a shoot promo. Mox continued, and this is where it got really controversial, so here's my message to Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, Brock Lesnar, and anyone else in the vision who thinks they can destroy Seth Rollins without consequences. You just made a critical mistake. You touched someone I care about. You hurt my brother. And that means you now have a problem. A problem that doesn't care about contracts or company loyalty or corporate boundaries. I left WWE in 2019 because I was suffocating under that corporate structure. I came to AEW because I needed freedom to be myself. But here's what you need to understand, that freedom means I can make choices based on what I believe is right, not what some contract or executive tells me is allowed. And right now, I believe the right thing is to make sure Seth Rollins doesn't face the vision alone. Whoa. Moxley was essentially threatening to violate his AEW exclusivity contract to help Seth. That's not just bold, that's potentially illegal depending on how his deal is structured. Mox looked even more intense. Paul Heyman, you're a smart man. You've been in this business for 30 years. You understand consequences. So here's yours. If the vision touches Seth Rollins one more time, if you attack him again, if you put your hands on my brother, I'm getting on a plane. I'm showing up wherever WWE is running. And I'm reminding everyone why you should never, ever mess with the Shield. Because the Shield isn't dead, Paul. The Shield is just waiting for the right moment to remind the world that we're the most dangerous thing that ever happened to professional wrestling. The crowd was losing their minds. Moxley just threatened to show up at WWE events on AEW television. He directly challenged Paul Heyman and the vision. He claimed the Shield still exists despite being in different companies. This was unprecedented television that blurred every line between reality and storyline. Mox dropped the microphone and walked away, leaving the interviewers standing there speechless. The camera stayed on the interviewer's confused face for what felt like forever before cutting to commercial. Backstage, according to sources, there was immediate chaos. What's your interpretation? Was this a worked angle coordinated between WWE and AEW, or did Mox go into business for himself? Give me your theory. Tony Khan was reportedly in his office during this segment and came running to the production area when he heard what Mox was saying. According to multiple sources, Khan was not informed that Mox was planning this promo. Mox went completely off script and created a potential legal and business nightmare that Khan now has to navigate. The immediate concern for AEW is contract enforcement. Moxley's AEW deal reportedly has exclusivity clauses that prevent him from appearing for other wrestling companies, especially WWE. If Mox actually follows through on his threat to show up at WWE events, he could be in breach of contract, which could result in AEW suspending him, fining him, or even terminating his deal. But here's the complication: Moxley is one of AEW's biggest stars and most credible main eventers. Punishing him for a promo that got massive attention and made AEW feel more important would be terrible business. Khan is reportedly torn between enforcing the contract to maintain order and show wrestlers can't just do whatever they want, and allowing this to play out, because the attention and potential crossover would be huge for AEW's profile. The WWE reaction has been equally complicated. According to Wrestling Observer, WWE's legal team immediately started reviewing the footage to determine if Moxley violated any intellectual property rules by referencing the Shield, WWE programming, or specific WWE wrestlers. The initial assessment is that Mox was careful enough in his wording that he didn't explicitly use WWE-owned terms, instead focusing on his brother Seth and the bond between three men, which are defensible as personal statements rather than IP infringement. But Triple H is reportedly furious for different reasons. Not about the legal aspects, but about the perception this creates. Triple H has been trying to position WWE as the dominant company where AEW is barely worth acknowledging. Having an AEW star cut a promo threatening to invade WWE and rescue a WWE star makes it seem like WWE can't protect its own talent, which is a terrible look. However, there's a counterargument within WWE's creative team that this could actually be good for business. The attention Mox's promo generated was massive. Mainstream sports outlets covered it, social media went crazy, and suddenly casual fans who don't watch AEW were talking about the possibility of Moxley returning to WWE. That kind of buzz is valuable, even if it came from an unplanned source. The Paul Heyman angle adds another layer. Heyman has history with Moxley from their WWE days, and while they never had major on-screen interactions, there's reportedly real mutual respect between them. Some sources suggest Heyman might have actually loved Mox's promo because it elevates the vision as being so dangerous that an AEW star is threatening to break his contract to stop them. That's heat that money can't buy. There's speculation that Heyman might have even planted the idea for this promo through back-channel communications with Mox, essentially using AEW television to build WWE storylines. If that's true, it would be manipulation on a level that's almost beautiful in its complexity, using a competitor's show to generate interest in your company's storylines. Do you think Paul Heyman orchestrated Mox's promo somehow, or was this purely Mox acting independently? Tell me which scenario you believe. The Shield reunion possibilities are what has fans most excited. If Moxley actually shows up in WWE, the potential for a Shield reunion, even a temporary one, would be massive. Roman and Seth are already working together despite their toxic dynamic. Adding Mox to that equation would complete the trio and create dream scenarios: the Shield vs The Vision, Braun, Brock, and a third member, the Shield vs The Bloodline, Solo's faction, the Shield in War Games. Individual Shield members in major WrestleMania matches, but there are obstacles to any Shield reunion beyond just Mox's contract. Roman and Seth's current storyline is built on distrust. They acknowledge they'll probably betray each other eventually. Adding Mox to that dynamic either solves the trust issues, because Mox is the glue that held them together originally, or complicates them further, because Mox might have his own agenda or loyalties might split between Seth and Roman. The contractual reality is that Moxley can't just show up at WWE without permission from Tony Khan. Mox's AEW deal reportedly runs through 2027, which means he has 3 more years of exclusivity. The only ways Mox could appear in WWE are: Tony Khan allows it as part of a broader WWE/AEW talent sharing agreement. Mox buys out his contract, which would cost him millions. Mox violates his contract and faces legal consequences. WWE and AEW work together on a storyline that benefits both companies. Option 4 is the most realistic if this is going to happen. WWE and AEW have softened their stances on cooperation recently. WWE allowed mentions of AEW on their programming in certain contexts, and AEW has acknowledged WWE's existence more openly. A storyline where Mox temporarily appears in WWE to help Seth, with Tony Khan's approval and possibly some reciprocal benefit for AEW, would be the cleanest solution. But Mox's promo suggested he's willing to do this without permission, which creates drama and makes fans wonder if this is a real rebellion rather than a corporate arrangement. That uncertainty is valuable for engagement and attention. The aftermath of the promo has been intense. Social media exploded with reactions. Moxley to WWE confirmed. This is the biggest wrestling story of the year. Tony Khan must be furious. Please let this lead to a Shield reunion. WWE and AEW working together would be huge. Wrestling journalists have been working sources at both companies trying to determine what's real versus what's worked. The consensus seems to be that Mox's feelings about Seth are genuine, but the execution and potential follow-through are still being negotiated behind the scenes. Make sure you're subscribed to Wrestling Newsletter because the Moxley/Shield/Vision situation is going to develop over the coming weeks. Hit that like button, share this with everyone who can't believe Moxley threatened Paul Heyman on AEW television, and tell me in the comments, will Moxley actually show up in WWE or is this just a publicity stunt that goes nowhere? What are your percentage odds? #Moxley, #The Shield, #Heyman, #Forbidden Door. Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley, sent a chilling warning to Paul Heyman after the Vision destroyed Seth Rollins, declaring that Seth is his brother and that attacking him means facing consequences. Mox threatened to show up at WWE events without permission to protect Seth, potentially violating his AEW contract. Tony Khan was reportedly blindsided and is now in damage control. WWE's legal team is reviewing if any lines were crossed. The Shield reunion suddenly feels possible despite Mox being in AEW. This isn't just a promo, it's a potential crisis that involves contracts, company politics, and the question of whether talent loyalty transcends corporate boundaries. Moxley made it clear: mess with Seth Rollins, and you mess with the Shield. And the Shield doesn't forget. The Forbidden Door might be about to explode open, or this might be the biggest tease in wrestling history. Either way, Paul Heyman and the Vision have been put on notice by a man who has nothing to lose and everything to prove.